Hey, Merry Christmas, everyone. Welcome to this week's broadcast of Surprise Worship Anywhere. Glad to have you with us. Thanks for being here. Let's check in for charity on Facebook right now. Let's do good right here, right now. Every 5 check-ins to Surprise Church Bismarck on Facebook provides a gift of a book to a child in Africa in partnership with Books for Africa. So let's do something good, man. You can do a lot of bad on your phone. You can do a lot of gunk on social media that doesn't help anybody. But if you go to Facebook, open up a post, take a selfie, and then click check-in, you can select or search for Surprise Church Bismarck, and then you'll do something that you'll never regret. Give a book and the gift of literacy to people around the world. So thanks for your help checking in and doing good. Follow the prompts at the bottom of the screen to get involved. Download our app. And we're going to right now be showing you the trailer video that introduces our Advent pre-Christmas series called The Invitation. Check it out. The gospel is an invitation. The Christmas story is an invitation. And today we're going to take another look at that invitation. We've been looking through the Old Testament scriptures that promise the coming of a Messiah. And this week we're going to look at the promise of a leader. That as God sent his son into the world to invite us into a relationship with him, it was aiming directly at an issue that you and I deal with every single day, and that's leadership. I want you to think for a minute of the best leader you know, or maybe the best leader that you have ever known in your life. And I'm not thinking just Winston Churchill or, George Washington. Think about someone you actually know, someone you've worked with, someone that coached you, taught you, parented you, supported you. What was so good about them? How did they treat you? So oftentimes, they probably had high expectations. People who don't have any expectations aren't really good leaders because they don't take you anywhere. They might be good friends and caring people, but leaders call something out of us. And if we're open to that, if we're open to being led, we welcome it. Because we know that that person is not trying to harm us or manipulate us or use us, but they want the best for us. I'm the best coach I've ever had. Sometimes got in my face and yelled at me because he knew I could do better. Some of the best parents out there are willing to have the hard conversations with their kids, and they don't mind displeasing them. They don't mind frustrating them because they have a greater picture. And those kids or those team members or those students who feel like, man, that is a great leader, they know that everything isn't going to be accepted. They know that they're going to be held accountable, but they also know that it's going to be for the right reasons. They trust the person that's leading them. So with that good leader in mind, I want to introduce you to this twofold kind of vision here that we're going to go into today. Human leadership and God leadership. I think anytime you see a good human leader, that is God poking through the sky and showing up through people. I think normal human leadership tends to be power-based and corrupt. So normal, human, broken leadership is all about position. It's about getting position. It's about power. It's about what can I do with my power. And it's not power for others, it's power for self. Human nature, left on its own, looks for positions of power or seeks to use power. And this, by the way, doesn't have to be, I need to be the CEO. This might be a position of power where I play the victim card in a relationship. Because if I can label myself as the one who is a victim and you're the one that's blamed, I have power over you. So I then can justify what I say or do next. So this might be a formal position of power, or it might just be the jockeying that we do in our relationships to take control of things. in a lot of these leadership roles, it's about the privilege that comes from control. It's about being a part of a privileged circle of elite leaders, or it's about a privilege of being able to control things. But the privilege is using power for self. Take a look at the other side, though, the total different vision for leadership that Jesus brought into the world. He said that the leaders of this world lord it over you, but not so with you, he said to his followers. If you want to be great, the greatest among you must be your servant. The first shall be the last. If you want to be great, you must deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. He said, the Son of Man, I came into the world not to be served, but to serve and give my life as a ransom for many. He came with an intention to serve. The best leaders you know use their position because they believe they can make a positive impact in the world. If they use it for self, they end up being corrupted. They use their power for others, not self. Because if you gain any sort of power, whether that's I'm bigger than you, and so I can control you because I threaten you physically. If it's I'm willing to use my emotions to manipulate you, and I'm going to use that power to control you, or I have a privilege of authority, and I'm going to use that to control the situation. That's power for self, right? Versus I'm going to use this power, this authority that I do have, to serve and make a difference. Sometimes that means making a hard call. Sometimes that means a tough conversation. But it doesn't mean just using people for myself. And this is also a privilege, but it's a privilege of a different kind. It's a privilege to serve, not a privilege to be elite and in control. So let's take a look with that in mind at this scripture, Ezekiel 34. The prophet Ezekiel is speaking to God's people. And look at the problems that he identifies. Ezekiel, this is a formula for if a prophet in the Old Testament is hearing from God, it says, the word of the Lord came. That's how prophets heard from God. The word of the Lord came to me. And here's what it said. Son of man, prophesy against the shepherds of Israel. Prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Woe to you, shepherds of Israel, who only take care of yourselves. Should not shepherds take care of the flock? You eat the curds, clothe yourselves with the wool, and slaughter the choice animals, but you do not take care of the flock. Everyone at this time, by the way, was intimately associated with shepherding and flocks. So it's an agrarian society, unlike the one we live in right now, even though we're in a rural area. Few of us live on farms or grew up on farms, increasingly so. I did, and so I get flocks and herds. We had cows. And those of you who did maybe have a unique insight into this, but he's saying, your job is to take care of the sheep, the people, and instead you're taking their hair off them and using it to clothe yourselves. You're slaughtering and eating them. You're eating their food. You're taking advantage of them. You're not caring for them. He goes on, you have not strengthened the weak, or healed the sick, or bound up the injured. You've not brought back the strays or searched for the lost. You've ruled them harshly and brutally, so they were scattered because there was no shepherd. And when they were scattered, I want you to remember these words, scattered and shepherd. We're going to come back to that. When they were scattered, they became food for the wild animals. My sheep wandered all over the mountains. On every high hill, they were scattered. He's repeating that over and over and over. They were scattered over the whole earth, and no one searched or looked for them. Bad shepherds use the role to benefit themselves. Bad leaders see no greater impact in power than using it to improve their own lot, their finances, their time, their energy, their positions, their jockeying for control in relationships. It's all to benefit themselves rather than to have a positive influence and to serve. Not to be a doormat, but to serve. So they ignore the needs of others, especially those that they should be leading. They ignore the lost, those who just fall away and stray. They're not interested in welcoming people back into the family of God. They leave the flock helpless and vulnerable to external threats, and they prey upon them. Not pray, but prey upon them. They actually consume or take advantage of them. So that's the problem that he identifies in leadership at the time of Ezekiel. Now the promised solution. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I am against the shepherds and will hold them accountable for my flock. I will remove them from tending the flock so that the shepherds can no longer feed themselves. I will rescue my flock from their mouths, and it will no longer be food for them. So he's going to hold these shepherds accountable. Judgment and accountability is a real thing before God, and he's going to rescue this flock from their vindictive, manipulative, and predatory leadership. He goes on, though. That's not all. For this is what the sovereign Lord says, I myself will search for my sheep and look after them. As a shepherd looks after his scattered flock when he is with them, so will I look after my sheep. I will rescue them from all the places where they are scattered. I myself will tend my sheep and have them lie down, declares the Lord. I will search for the lost and bring back the strays. I will bind up the injured and strengthen the weak, but the sleek and the strong I will destroy. I will shepherd the flock with justice. So he looks at sheep that have abused their fellow sheep and gotten fat off of their neighbors and friends. And he's, I'm going to judge you. You have accumulated for yourself at the expense of others. And so I'm going to judge you based on your behavior, and I'm going to protect them from you. I'm going to shepherd with justice, he says. Question is, how is God going to provide? And Ezekiel's going to explain this. How is God going to provide or personally provide the leadership his people need? Because you saw that last visual. I myself is written half a dozen times. God is promising to personally lead his people. Well, that's a bit of a challenge. He did it when Moses led Israel out of the slavery in Egypt to the promised land, like with a pillar of cloud and fire. Is that what he's going to come back down and do? He's going to show up with miraculous cosmic signs and signs in the sky? Like, how's he going to do this, right? Is it going to be another Moses? Is it going to be another flood in Noah's time? Is it going to be starting over? What's he going to do? Is it going to be a king? Is it going to be a military leader? What's he going to do? Ezekiel, tell us what he's going to do. Verse 23, I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he will tend them. He will tend them and be their shepherd. David, by the way, was a shepherd, King David, when he was a boy. He wrote Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not be in want. I, the Lord, will be their God, and my servant David will be prince among them. I, the Lord, has spoken. This is a little bit confusing, because here's the deal. God says, I will be their shepherd, I will appoint a shepherd, and I will be their God. And then he says, I'm going to send a good shepherd, a good leader, who will be appointed by me. He will be the descendant of King David, and he'll be a good leader and a prince. And so God is going to do it, but he's going to appoint someone to do it at the same time. How's that going to work? How is God going to personally do it, and how is he going to appoint someone else to do it? And have that person that's not going to take advantage of his flock like all these other leaders did. Because if you haven't noticed, God, appointing people hasn't gone so well, right? These people that are appointed tend to be corrupt. Power tends to corrupt, as the old saying goes. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. I remember learning in social studies class. So how are you going to appoint someone with this kind of power that doesn't become a bad shepherd? God somehow promised to send the good shepherd and be the good shepherd. How's this going to work? How's God going to send someone and be someone at the same time? Well, let's look at Matthew 9. Jesus went through all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, look at his heart. He had compassion on them. Literally, the Greek says his guts moved, his bowels cramped up in a non-digestive way, and he had compassion on them because they were harassed and helpless, wait for it, like sheep without a shepherd. So Jesus is moved to compassion for leaderless people who just are scattered like Ezekiel saw, and harassed and helpless. John 10, Jesus is speaking about his own role in this process. Listen to what he says. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I come. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. When the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it, the man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. But Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me. Just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. Do you see the difference there between a hired hand and the shepherd? Hired hand doesn't care, doesn't own them. So they're not my sheep. If you go to the health club and you spill a protein shake on the treadmill when you're running and no one sees, you'd be a little tempted to just kind of jump on the next treadmill and just jump on that one and let the repairman fix that. Because it's not my treadmill, it's not my problem. They're not my sheep, they're not my problem. So God says, I'm going to take personal ownership over these because they're mine. I care for them because I made them. I'm their heavenly Father, and I'm willing to lay my life down for them. So bad shepherds use power for self. They want life from others, and they abandon and abuse the flock. But the good shepherd, Jesus, uses power to serve. He wants life for his sheep, and he lays his own life down to give it to them. Think about our lighthouse project for a minute. If you're in Bismarck area or if you're far away, we've encouraged one another to declare our homes as a lighthouse in our neighborhood. If you're local to Bismarck and are available on Sundays, make sure you come and put a tack on your address right on our lighthouse map and grab a slip of paper that says, here's how I can be a lighthouse. If not, just go and do a search for lighthouse on our website and you'll see our lighthouse page. And it'll explain how you can make your home a lighthouse, to be a kind of neighbor that isn't just there for what can this neighborhood do for me, but what can I do for this neighborhood? Well, how can I be a blessing and a light in my neighborhood? Because people know what bad leadership looks like. And when they see good leadership, that isn't about having position of power, but it's about positively influencing others. It makes a huge difference. Here's the visual that we've been giving. The one side of the visual on Sundays is how you be a lighthouse, and the back side is a visual that talks about how to invite people to participate in the community of Surprise Church, using the tools we provide to help people learn how to follow the Good Shepherd, and how to introduce people. A lot of creative, simple steps to take. And we've just been encouraging folks to do that this month. And here's the reason. We've learned by studies that 3 out of 5 people say they would come to a church and connect with a family of God if someone they trust invited them. And so we've been giving away 5 little cards a week. Say, invite 5 people this week. Because guess what? 3 out of 5 of them are going to say yes. And for the Bell, over 3 services, when we do Christmas at the Bell Mayhews, these 2 dates, there's a total of 2,100 open seats. That's quite a flock. We like to think of Christmas as God is giving us a chance to gather a flock of people, a flock of sheep, to get to know the Good Shepherd. And so we asked this question, what if 2,100 people decided to follow and imitate the best leader in history, who says, the thief comes to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. You know, in the birth story of Jesus, it's quite telling that the first people they invited to the manger scene, I mean, here you got a scene of animals. Maybe there were sheep right there, cattle or a donkey. It was the stable. There was a bed of straw, not a real bed. And when God decides who he wants to invite first, the VIP invitation, the first witness to the birth of the Good Shepherd, the one who God would send to be the Good Shepherd, and the one who would be God living as and being the Good Shepherd who lays his life down for his sheep. The first people invited, as Luke chapter 2 says, there were in that region, keeping watch over their flocks by night, shepherds. And the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified. But God said to them, the angel said to them, fear not, for I bring you good news of great joy. For unto you is born this day in the city of David, David, the shepherd David, the descendant of David, born in the city of David, a Savior who is Christ the Lord. And after the shepherds got that message, they went with haste, it says, to see this child that had been born. They were the first invitation given to Jesus' birth party, his first birthday, the first Christmas. And why wouldn't they be? In a world of bad shepherds, why would God invite bad shepherds? Why would he invite the high and lofty and mighty when shepherds are available, just quietly tending their flocks as they should? And I think his invitation to them was a sign for all of us that this baby is finally the one who got it right, who lived the life that we couldn't, and died the death we deserved, and now calls us into a relationship and an honored journey following the Good Shepherd, learning ourselves how to lead well, using power and position and authority and leverage, not for self, but to serve. This Christmas, I pray that that story comes to life for you, that you're able to identify bad shepherds around you, or maybe even tendencies you have towards that human style of leadership, and more fully embrace Jesus, the Good Shepherd, and let him lead through you, through how you love your family and the people closest to you, how you light up your neighborhood, how you invite and have an open-handed approach to people who maybe don't have a church home this Christmas, or maybe even how you leave an open seat at your table for somebody who might be alone if it weren't for you. God bless you. Can't wait to see you at the Bell. Christmas services are again, if you're in the Bismarck area, the 22nd and 24th. We're also going to have our professionally recorded and edited service online starting on the 24th and the 25th on TV and online. So if you're at a distance, it'll be available all throughout that weekend online and Facebook, YouTube, and our website. So we'll make sure that you can celebrate Christmas with us, whether you're here or whether you're traveling or you're living at a distance. God bless you. Thanks for joining us. Merry Christmas.
You are calling me again. I hear your voice upon the wind. In the quiet, in the still. grace.